and in my imagination, it's a little guy who's delivering coffee. And he said, do you guys know about Star Trek? And the guys who own Paramount, they've been changed. Every 2-3 years, the management changes for some reason. So they have no idea of the history of what the jobs they've come into. So they have no idea of Star Trek. You know, what's the Star Trek? They had this show on. You know, they went 3 years and then was canceled. And then maybe that could work. So they kick him out and throw him coffee after him. And then they say, well, wait a minute, Star Trek, okay. Let's do a movie of Star Trek. And we're gonna get a big time director. Let's get Robert Wise. Robert Wise, at that point, was like one of the probably the most popular director in Hollywood at the time. He had just finished West Side Story, right? So West Side Story, big grossing picture. Mr. Wise, would you like to direct Star Trek? He goes, Star Trek? So he goes home and he says to his wife, now this I know to be true. Millicent, they'd asked me to direct Star Trek. I don't think I'll do it. She says, are you crazy? It's my favorite program. Bobby, you've got to direct Star Trek. So he says, okay, I'll direct Star Trek. So they get Nick Meyer to write it, and they get Doug Trumbull to do the special effects, and they've got a movie going, except it runs into trouble. There's a strike. Doug Trumbull who's a brilliant special effects guy, has no real guidance. He makes reams and reams of special effects. And Robert Wise, who was one of the great editors, he edited
Citizen Kane.
What?
Citizen Kane.
Oh, Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
And who directed that?
It was Orson Welles.
And what was Orson Welles?
Orson Welles was a director and actor.
He was a director and he was the most brilliant performer. He had the Mercury Theater. He was a great stage actor, a great director, a great actor. And this great movie was Citizen Kane. And it was brilliantly edited by no less than Robert Wise, who now is part of the legend of Hollywood. Robert Wise, Bobby Wise. So he directs the film, but as I say, it ran into trouble. And by the time we all met, cast and crew and everybody, in Washington, D.C., to open the film, it had just been, they call it wet. The film was wet from being in the bath and however they developed the film. It was still wet. And there's a guy carrying it under his arm, and he arrives just before we open. It's supposed to play at 7, he arrives at 6, they string it up, and it plays. So now we've premiered the movie. They expected to make billions of dollars. They made millions. But not enough millions to make it like a success. So Charles Bludorn, I got all this lodged in there. Charles Bludorn, who is head of Paramount Studios, this I know to be true, goes home to his wife and he says, oh, I've forgotten her name, Millie. No, that's his. And it didn't make any money, and I'm not going to make any more Star Trek movies. She said, are you crazy? She said, my favorite television show. You've got to make more movies. So Charles Bludorn gives the whole Star Trek thing to the television department, and the television department gets a script going. Nick Meyer writes the film, and he directs it. And by the way, he goes out with my daughter. And rest of the film. So, so you might say that the Me Too movement began the rest of Star Trek. Please sit down and enjoy yourself. Hello there. What's your name? What do you do, David?
I take care of you.
That's right. I thought I saw you somewhere. Oh my God, you got a little lemon there? No lemon? Just, why? No lemon, no thanks, David. We had enough of you.
All right. This is going to be a fun night, I think. Getting that impression.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay, all right. That's good. That's good. So, one of the things that I wanted to know was why.
Well, before you ask me the first question.
Yeah.
No. Before you ask me the first question, I'd like people to know who you are. I mean, tell us.
Nobody cares. Really.
No.
Really, nobody cares. Yeah.
Everybody cares about everybody. This is a college town, and we have that kind of. We have that human emotion before it's knocked out of us. You know what I mean? Well, you book films. You're a
Film programmer for Austin Film Society.
Programmer doesn't quite suggest the magic what you bring to Austin.
I quite agree.
What?
I quite agree. I think we should spend about 40 minutes on me.
But you're a wondrous man, but what is most valued is you love film.
That's true.
And we all love film, so we're connected. Okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
And this is a film that I love, and I don't know how many of you watched this film, maybe with your parents, maybe saw it. Yeah.
Oh, geez, Lars.
This is really
With
one of
your
the
parents.
This is really one of the big ones.
Yeah. How about your grandparents?
Grandparents. Yeah. But this was a really big film because the first Star Trek the motion picture came out, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on when I was a kid. It was a little confusing.
No, but it was a great. The movie, Star Trek the movie, had a great science fiction premise.
It did. It had a great premise. It had wonderful effects.
Wonderful actors.
The actors were unbelievable. But it didn't. It really kind of took taking the budget down, putting it in the hands of the actors again, maybe away from quite so many special effects to make something that is so special. You'll notice we're not watching Star Trek the motion picture. We watched Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And what I want to know is, why has this one really been the one that has been so meaningful to people?
Well, when I'm asked on occasion, very rarely, why did Star Trek go on and on and on and on and on and on and on? My answer is I've never seen the others. And I'm great friends with the Next Generation guys. I've never seen the Next Generation. The thing is, you're gonna write that down? But I've never seen the others. There go those questions. Well, I mean, I had a terrible experience. I had a terrible, embarrassing experience based on the fact that I don't know anybody who's in Star Trek who's alive. You know, the people I know are all dead. Well, I'm supposed to laugh at that and not go on. But I had a terrible experience recently. So they were doing something laudatory about Star Trek. They were doing a look back,
Retrospective, yeah.
Retrospective of, I got the first part, you got the second, but we shared that word.
Teamwork.
So there was a large audience, it was being broadcast. And they asked me to come down, and so I came down to the theater, and they said, we've written some words for you to say. So I said, show them to me on the teleprompter. So the guy shows me, and thank you very much, and I read all that. Okay, I got that. And he says, the teleprompter is way in the back, and when it goes on, you speak. It'll be your cue to speak when it goes on. Don't speak, don't say anything because we're in commercial or something. Ladies and gentlemen, William Shatner. By the way, there's this young lady here. She'll walk out that way, and you walk out that way. I don't know who the young lady is. Just a 21-year-old young lady, pretty girl, nice girl. I have no idea what she does for Star Trek, but I presumed she was part of Star Trek because she was there. And when I walk out, people stand and applaud. Please don't stand. It's embarrassing. And they sit rapidly, I may add. And I wait for the teleprompter to go on, and the teleprompter goes on. And there's some words I don't recognize, but I say them anyway. Thank you very much. I'm so pleased. And I do that. Then, there's some words I do recognize. And then I say the words that I rehearse, and I say it. And then it comes, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And they all stand and applaud. Please don't stand. It's embarrassing. So they sit down rapidly. And I leave the stage, and she leaves the stage. And we get off stage. Somebody says, "You said her words." I didn't know she was. No one told me she was going to speak. Turns out she's playing the lead in a Star Trek thing. Young black girl, you know who I mean? You don't know who I mean? What are you doing here? Who do I mean? What's her name? Zoe. Is it Zoe? So to this day, her name is Zoe. To this day, they don't know Zoe and her manager, who's staring daggers at me. I thought I should get a guard, because I thought that guy was going to plunge something in her chest. Because that was a big moment for her, and I had taken it totally away. I had no idea. This guy's looking daggers at me, and she's down there. And to this day, she doesn't know it was inadvertent.
She thought you were just trying to steal the good lines.
No, she's crying, says Shatner. I knew it. They told me about him. I know, it's clear.
We're gonna get to that a little bit later.
What?
They told me about him. Shatner. We are. You told me I can ask anything.
Yes, what are you going to ask?
That's the thing.
You can ask anything, but don't ask that.
Okay, I want to ask that. So the Wrath of Khan shoot, there's something about it that it really feels like it must have been a really pleasant shoot, because there's that great energy, there's that great sort of bonhomie between you and other members of the group.
Time. It was. We knew how good the script was, and Nick Meyer, who wrote the script and was directing it, was very theatrical. He's a short guy, 5'6", 5'7". And that's applause for
short guys. Yeah.
You're not invited to applause. You're, what, 6'3"? Yeah, right. And as I get older, I'm beginning to applaud for short guys. You shrink, you know.
Well, you're in your 60s now.
Shrink.
Yeah.
What do you mean, yeah?
So you're in your 60s now. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm shrinking. I used to be 6'1". No, not really.
You still are. I'm just 7'6".
Well, I can say anything up here. And Zoe would come running out. I told you he was terrible. Where was I?
Well, we were talking about the atmosphere on set during.
So the atmosphere on set was really good, and the fact that I let me give you a little history of Ricardo Montalbán.
Please.
So I was born in Montreal, and New York was like the place, you know. So every so often, once a year maybe, my parents would take me at a young age down to New York to see the plays, see some Broadway, and one of the Broadway. Now, as time goes on, I believe it's general, you begin to, it's lodged in there somewhere, the knowledge, the names and things are lodged in there somewhere, but the retrieval is weak. It's like a battleship where the shells come up, it comes up on an elevator, and it goes into the thing, and then the thing closes, and then, retrieval. But that's a very slow process. But the name of the play, the musical that this handsome young man was in, remains with Jamaica. So Jamaica was this innocuous musical, but there was this brilliant young man dancing and singing, and wow, guy, that's a star. And then when I back in Montreal, go see the movies, give you a few pennies, and you go see 3 movies on a Saturday afternoon into the evening. I did that every week. I began to see this man turn up. Latin lover, the Latin bad guy. He would play all kinds of roles. Discovered his name was Ricardo Montalbán. So one day I'm doing Star Trek, and onto the set comes Ricardo Montalbán. And I said, Ricardo Montalbán. He said, no, Ricardo. So he's walking with a cane, and what happened? He said, well, I fell off my horse. Really? No, too bad. Well, that'll, you'll heal. So we do the series episode, and then comes the movie, and they hire Ricardo. And I meet him again. Hi, Ricardo. And now he's on a wheelchair. He's being wheeled around. What's the matter? Well, I got a thing, the legs, and he can't walk. But because he was such an athlete prior, he worked out. And he had this enormous pecs. I couldn't get my eyes off his face. Oh my God! He was, yes, I'm really good to Montalbán. But those were his muscles, and we never acted together. The only connection I had with him was God. That was it.
Yeah. There's.
But after the movie was over, I used to go visit him. He had a lovely home up in the hills of Los Angeles, and I'd go there. He was getting worse and worse, but he was such a wonderful man and such a wonderful gentleman. I truly loved him. And then he died, and everybody was very sad.
Yeah. I didn't know we were going to land that abruptly.
This is great. This crowd is very, very weird, okay? The weird guys. Death.
Every time. It's a great laugh.
Destruction.
So when you watch this movie, you're aware of it. You sort of know that there was some cost cutting going on.
Cost cutting?
Cost cutting, yeah.
You don't even know what that means.
Well, tell me what it means.
Applied to Star Trek.
Yeah.
I mean, cost cutting was our middle name.
Yeah.
It was cost cutting was Trek.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the series was made for $150,000 in the segment. Now they spend $2, $3, $4, $5 million. The movie was made for a third of the cost of the Star Trek the movie, and what was important to everybody on Star Trek was the story. And here you have a wonderful story.
Yeah, that really kind of pushes it through. And one of the big aspects of the story, we can talk about it because you guys just saw the movie, is that Spock dies.
What?
Spock dies.
What?
And
Spock died.
Yeah. And it's this incredible moment. It's like a really notable moment. And I from one of your books, I understand that Leonard just kind of wanted to be done with doing Spock, and he welcomed Spock dying.
You know what? Leonard and I were brothers. I loved Leonard Nimoy, and he loved me. We spent so much time together, not so much on the set because we were all busy, but afterwards with Comic Cons books and on stage and other movies, of course, that we made, and all the appearances we would do together. I got to know him so well. He was a beautiful man, and I loved him like a brother, and we talked to each other. There were things, we were born 4 days apart. He in Boston, me in Montreal, very similar cities, not that far apart. And our backgrounds were basically the same, and we shared divorce and children and death. And we shared a lot of life's experiences together, and we were very, very closely bonded. Leonard and I.
And in this, the character of Spock, and this is
Because what?
the character of Spock dies in this.
I know.
And but as it goes on, we have our little teaser at the ending that we think he might come back. How did all that happen?
Let me tell you about that.
Please do.
So I, I'm Captain Kirk, right? And so I have to know what's going on. I don't know anything that's going on. I see Leonard go over to the prostrate body of McCoy and says, "Remember." What was that? Why did he say remember? Don't know. He's making it up. Making it up. What was that shot about the coffin? What was it? Didn't call much. What was all that about? Little did I know that my brother was plant. So he says to management, "I've had it with Spock. I can't do it anymore. This is second movie. I'm not going to do the plan. I'm out." You can't do that. You've got to play Spock. It's a Spock. It's a Spock. No. Unless what, Leonard? Unless I can direct it. That clever son of a gun. Well, I was only too happy because our contract called for, whatever he got, I got. So any girl he went out with, I went out with. And what the contract called for, whatever that's called, equal, favored nations. So I would get to direct Star Trek 4. I'm busy shooting a series called the police series, I think.
TJ Booker, sir.
Hey, I can't remember everything. I remember Charles Bluedorn, didn't I?
I can't remember every phenomenally successful series you've had.
Right, 5 years in the making, jumping over roofs of Los Angeles. I can't remember everything. But anyway, I was shooting that series, so I couldn't direct Star Trek 4. In fact, if I remember correctly, I was in jeopardy of getting to my previous. I had a previous contract with that series, so I had to be there. They had an advance call on me other than Star Trek, so I had to be there. So one day I come to the Paramount Studios, and there's a lot of people running around, and I said, "There's a lot of what's going on?" And they said, "The set is catching fire." What? So I run to the stage, and indeed, one of the plastic rocks of the average planet is caught fire. And I'm thinking, if this set catches fire, if it burns, there's going to be a delay. So I grabbed a garden hose, and I'm watering the fire. And finally, the firemen burst in. They get out of here. The smoke from these plastic rocks is poisonous. I said, "Put out the fire." Remind me, I'm not going to make my... So that was a bit of an adventure.
It sounds like a bit of an adventure.
We're talking about burning, death, and
I don't even know.
it's a basketball move.
It is. I don't even know how to transition into. I don't even know how to transition into this next question.
Just there. Take Take a sip of water.
Okay.
So, what else do you want to ask?
Recently, the Star Trek family has become smaller because of death.
They died.
Yes. And I wanted to ask for some fond remembrances of Nichelle Nichols, who was your sister for years. Well, tell me a little bit about Nichelle, and then I'll ask about some other folks that we've lost.
Nichelle was lovely. She was beautiful. She could sing. She could dance. She was a wonderful actress. And she was beloved by everybody, including me. That hey is suspect.
She, at one point, you were working on a project, and you interviewed her, and she kind of gave you a little what for, didn't she?
No, I was writing a book on Star Trek, and I couldn't remember a thing that had happened.
I believe that.
That's true. I couldn't remember. I kept, that Star Trek. What was that again? And I couldn't remember any of the stories. I was asked to write stories. Wait a minute. I'll ask the cats what they remembered, and say, yeah, I remember that, and write it down. So I interviewed Nichelle, and she told me all kinds of adventures that she had on and off the screen. Very. Give me a yeah. Yeah, boys, yeah. It was interesting. What's your question?
At the end of the interview, and she gave you all her stories, and then she said, I want to tell you why.
You don't want to talk about the kiss?
Yeah, let's talk about the kiss. There's a very important kiss.
I kissed her on time.
And this was an incredible moment, and there were protests
For me,
from
I don't
down
know
south.
about you.
Yeah, for me it was an incredible moment too. But for all of America.
It was an incredible moment for you too.
Yeah, when I saw it.
You're a voyeur.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not ashamed of it. I like playing baseball. I like watching other people play baseball.
She was beautiful, and I enjoyed kissing her very much.
And it was a big deal because, like, south of the Mason-Dixon line, you have TV affiliates that you play.
A television station decided not to play that segment, but they regretted it.
Well, tell me a little bit more. A younger member who we lost too young of the Star Trek family, Kirstie Alley. This is the first time I think we ever met Kirstie Alley in this film. Yeah.
This was Kirstie Alley in her youthful beauty. Well, with Kirstie, who I got to know as the years went on, and we lived in the same area of Los Angeles, so I would see her at various places and we would say hello. She's lovely, was a lovely young lady. But here, in this movie, she's at her peak of beauty. And she is you know how we all have ideals of beauty? Like, is your wife your ideal?
Yes. That's a big 10-4.
You don't understand. I'm a trained observer in your life. So she is my ideal of beauty. The classic face, the hair, the body. That's what I think is beautiful. And I married that girl 4 times. I'm still married to a girl who's a little older than that, but is still beautiful.
Speaking
not mine.
Speaking of multiple marriages and multiple divorces.
Who's speaking of multiple marriages?
I think we just were.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess that over the years you've been able to sock away a few bucks here and there.
When you say sock away,
yeah.
You mean save?
Yeah. Like you've been working for 178 years. And I guess what I'm wondering is like,
since the Boer War.
You're still out here hustling. You were in. You guys will get this. You were in Midland, Texas the other night.
And Sweetland. And the other
Sugarland.
Sugarland.
Yeah.
Oh. Sugarland. In fact, are you aware that there are 2 old sugar distilleries that are monuments to the old sugar?
Yeah, know all about Sugarland.
Yeah. Do you know about molasses?
Oh yeah.
Do you know that molasses is sugar or sugar is molasses?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
So what's happening in Sweetland?
Well,
they're very slow there. You notice they walk slow.
oh, the
As
slowest.
slow as molasses.
As molasses. Anyway, back to talking about your massive fortune.
Yes.
You don't have to do this. What drives you to work?
I'm a Ford. That question is going to be asked on the next, our next, whenever I appear next week. What drives you to work? A Ford.
Why do you continue to work and reading one of your
Look,
books?
are you having a good time now?
I'm having a great time.
Great time? I'm having it. Are you guys having a good time? Does that answer your question? Does that answer?
You're having fun.
This is happening. We don't know what's going to happen next. They, unfortunately, don't know what's going to happen next either. So all of us are like at a happening. The words we're speaking are coming out of our mouth. And when I was first asked to do a Comic-Con back in, it was like they were alligators coming up, prehistoric time, before the big asteroid.
Mass extinction event.
The 4th. Yeah. Or was it the 5th? No, I think it was the 5th, and we were the 6th. Right. You laugh. We are the 6th extinction. I'll come to that shortly. And you'll either boo me off the stage, or you'll welcome me with open arms. Of course, I'm not in West Texas any longer, am I?
Central.
What were you saying?
Well, we were talking about why you still do this.
And the Ford that I got out of, the live, I perform live in a lot now. There's no prepared dialogue. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what questions you're going to ask. And I'm living by my wits, and we, the audience, you and I, know that that's what's happening. There's nothing's prepared. So there's like a spontaneity that the audience is aware of, and it adds to the fun. When I was asked to do the first Comic-Con, I said, no, yeah, I'm a serious actor. I'm not going to go out there. They said, well, you know, there's going to be 15,000 people. I said, 15,000 people? I got a book. So I stepped in front of on the boards there, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, what am I going to say? And the thing that bothered me the most was a Freudian slip. Now, I'm not even going to suggest what a Freudian slip is, because that indeed is a Freudian slip. So I'm not going to give an example. Why don't you give an example of a Freudian slip? Yes.
I can't think of one that's
Yes,
family
you can.
friendly, you know.
Just give me a Freudian slip. Choose one now.
Nice to hunt. I can't.
No,
They're all filthy.
Lawrence, you have to. Give me a Freudian slip, Lawrence.
It was great to meet Bill Shatner.
What do you mean you don't mean that? You know how many fights I got into as a kid? Talk you one right between your eyelids. I'm going to shove your glasses through your ears. I can do it. But I mean, there you are. You choose a Freudian slip, it's a Freudian slip. Bill Shatner, there's this passive aggressive quality. So I was afraid I'd say Bill Shatner. So I mean, that was a fear, and then gradually you think, oh, screw it, you know. And I didn't say screw, you know. And then here I am.
Here we are. It's all advanced to this. When I spoke to you, and I'll say this truly to amplify what you said, you didn't want to go over any of the questions. You said, ask me anything. If I don't like the question, I'll just ignore it.
Well, I didn't say ignore it. Ask me a question. No, out of the fertility of your brain.
Well, no, but this came out of the fertility of my brain. These questions.
That's the facility.
Yeah. So there have been a number of subsequent captains. Did any of the subsequent captains come to you for advice?
This city is really a wonderful city. We came over from Sugarland about 2:30 this morning, and I never saw more traffic. I mean, it's unbelievable. Have you guys been out at 2:30 in the morning? It's a party. They're going by in short skirts, and you know, and guys are slobbering, running out.
And that's just in your hotel room.
After our experience in Midland, this was a joy, I gotta tell you.
So I read your book, To Boldly Go, and I have to say,
There's no two there.
Boldly Go, I'm sorry.
Say it again.
I read your book, Boldly Go.
Did you like it?
I loved it.
Ooh,
It was wonderful.
You could do no harm.
So, and when I got this gig a few weeks ago, I figured I'll just, Shatner's written some books, I'll go read his books. Do you realize you've written 40 books? Do you know how many books that is?
Do I realize
Yeah.
that I've written 40 books?
40 books!
Dimly, I realize.
But here's the thing about the books. I've read 3 of them. But what I didn't realize...
You got 37 to go.
I know. But here's what I realized. You've read almost all of these books as like audiobooks.
I've read them, yeah.
Yeah.
I've recorded them as well.
Yeah, it's audiobooks, yeah. And so I can just be driving around and I'm hearing this magical voice reading these wonderful books.
Wow.
And I recommend it. You can read it too, the analog way if you like.
If going to the University of Texas, you can read. I think
Can we get Bill's body going over here?
They're beginning to turn. You can see.
They're not just beginning.
They're coming up the aisle.
Yeah, they are.
I had a guy.
Yeah.
I'm doing entertaining something.
Thank God.
Okay. In Australia, actually. And the guy, there's a big snigger around on. I said, all right, so I go, and he walks down the aisle, and I said, don't come out on stage. And he gets up on stage. And there's supposed to be a guy, a security guy. The guy, and I said, sit up! And he sits down. Big guy. I said, what's the matter with him? And he started to get up, and I went, sit down. I gave him the Spock pitch, and he thought it was for real. I had the best time with it.
It sounds like you're in Texas. I know you've been in Texas before because this is where you made Miss Congeniality. You made Miss Congeniality.
actually when they were just building the University of Texas. Years and years ago, I did something. And I thought it was in Austin, but apparently it was in Dallas because I looked it up. With Margo Jones, Theater of the Rap. Does anybody know who Margo Jones is? Margo Jones was one of the great theater directors and producers and innovators that was at the University of Texas in Dallas. She is part of the legend of American theater. And I did something with her that, and I forgot exactly what, but she comes, well, you know. Midland is gone from my mind even now. She was incredible. She was a force in the American theater for many years. Her death was even more bizarre. They cleaned her rug with chemical, which gave off a poison gas. And so they leave, and she goes to sleep, and she dies from the poison gas. At 40, how old are you?
Over 40.
She died at over 40. And she was very young.
That's one thing about looking through your books is like you will, and I think of you as fun-loving William Shatner, who's hilarious. Shatner, yeah, sorry. Got it wrong. But you're referencing Henrik Ibsen, you're referencing like Eugene O'Neill and Bertolt Brecht throughout this thing. And I remember that you were a serious man of the theater.
I was.
Yeah.
And now?
Now you're a man who still references Henrik Ibsen. You still think about all of this stuff.
I do. I read a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm asked, what keeps you young? And I think the thing that keeps me young is slowly, as I became an adult later, I began to understand that we have an inner child that somewhere about the age of 3 till about 7, there's this curious child that we are until we get older, and we're curious about everything. Why is the sky blue? What are you wearing blue? Why did you call him Shatner? What's the curious child that becomes the inner child as you get older, and that inner child is beaten down over the years. Now, backstage, you and I were talking about your life with your girlfriend is a life of poetry. She has a green hand. She works.
Green thumb.
Oh, it's just a thumb.
Just a thumb, yeah.
She lacks 4 fingers, I think. But she's learning. First of all, she'll get this, and then she'll get that thing.
Eventually, yeah. Getting closer every day, yeah.
But you live a life of poetry. What a beautiful. Why are you shrugging? Why? Oh, it's not so poetic. What do you mean?
No, I mean, yeah. We live. I think a life of poetic values.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what that people should cultivate, especially that inner, curious, excitable child who's curious about everything. And you can lose that as you get older, or you can cultivate it, and you can say, wait a minute. I'm going to say, as one of my books was, saying yes to experience. Say yes. I mean, if you say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take that course, or no, it's too hard, or it interferes with going out on Saturday night. Take the course. Do something. Say yes to life is the theme of one of the books.
And that
Boldly Go is about, I'd like to think is about the getting with the vibrating universe. The universe, and I offer some examples of how the universe has taken care of me. But the connection with the universe is done, I think, because I believe about 85% about what I'm saying. The other 50% is bullshit. And I'm not quite sure which is which. But we know the universe is vibrating. energy and material, matter is the same. It's all vibration. So we are vibrating. And if you can, by prayer, by awareness, by meditation, whatever the function is, join the universe. It's capable. The universe is capable of taking care of you. Let me give you an example. I was asked when I was shooting Star Trek, all those many years ago, I was asked by a well-known recording company to make a recording, make an album. Make an album. So here was my concept. I would take the best of literature, of which I was acquainted, and I was a Shakespearean actor. I was with Shakespeare Company for many years. I would take To Be or Not to Be. So just that passage, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it's no, Shakespeare. And have written music that segues under, and then go on to a lyric of a song of the time, which that song was, it was a very good year. So you go from, I don't know whether I want to live or die, to, I've had a great life, and now when I was 21, and that's a good idea. Cyrano de Bergerac, I may climb to no great heights, but I will climb alone. Segues into a drug song. Can't climb alone. This is a drug. So I'm on the Johnny Carson show, Tonight Show, to publicize the album. And so I'm in rehearsal, and I do, I may climb to no great heights, but I will climb alone. Segues to Lucy in the sky. And the producer comes up to me and says, Bill, that's 6 minutes long. We're only doing 3 minutes. Do you want to choose the literature or the lyric? I guess the lyric. So now I'm on the show. The show goes on. Carson is there. And I'm doing Lucy in the sky. And I look over at Carson. He's going. And that's what happened. So over the years, for one reason or another, I made more albums. And finally joined up with Ben Folds and made an album with Ben Folds. And it was, that particular album was very successful, worked very well. And a while ago, he called me and said, I'm now music director at the Kennedy Center, and would I come and entertain on stage at the Opera House, a large capacity house, with the symphony orchestra. And Robert Chernow and I had written 25 songs, because we've been asked to do an album which is called Bill, which is available now on Spotify and all those kinds of stuff. Well, it got reviews. That album got reviews like breathtaking. So it's a really wonderful album, but we had all these other songs. So I said, Ben, I've got all these songs. And so we decided I would come the week after Earth Day, and 70-piece orchestra, and it was a happening. And one of the songs we wrote was called So Fragile, So Blue. And it's about the fragility of a blue planet and how it's getting away from us, and what we're not seeing, what we're missing. And it worked incredibly. So it was the last number of the hour and something that I did, and they wouldn't let me off the stage. It's recorded, so it's going to be an album of songs, and probably called Shatner at the Kennedy Center, and a documentary of how the performance took place. And from being laughed at to having this major thing happen in one of the great cultural centers of the country is a journey. And the universe, I think, was looking after that. We're going to make a music video of So Fragile, So Blue. And in my fantasy, it is like We Are the World. And it is a him a rallying cry to taking care of the planet.
It sounds fantastic. I can't wait. That's gonna be good. Now you guys provided some very good questions, and also some not so great questions, but I won't read those. But I'm going to ask you some questions from the audience. Is that all right?
Of course, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. That's absolutely. When filming, this is from Marcus here in Austin. When filming Wrath of Khan, did you know that Spock would come back in Star Trek 3?
Well, as I described, I didn't. No, I didn't. When the producer talked to me in his office about the scene they were preparing, I said, "Oh, it's got to be a glass door, and we hold our hands up and everything." So I described what I saw, and they used that part of it.
You made that up?
Yes, I am a creative artist, you know. Even though I go by the name of Shatner.
It's just like such a brilliant way to do that scene. So
To what?
It's a brilliant way to do that scene.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I'm impressed.
Good.
You impress me more every day, Bill.
Wow, let's talk some more.
Tell me, this is Simon asked this, and Simon Day from Austin, and he specifies that he's formerly from England. I don't know why we needed to know that, but thank you, Simon. What is a film role you would have loved to play?
Well, I'm here. Austin is a great city.
Come on.
What has that got to do with the answer to the question? Be patient. I'm going to tell you. So Austin is a great city. I've had nothing but great experiences with people. I had food from, what was the restaurant?
Uchi.
They brought me in food this evening while you were watching the movie, and I was eating. This is a great city, and all those people at 2 o'clock in the morning. But it's a city of learning. It's a forward-thinking city. It's a great place. Austin, Texas, is one of the great places, not only in the country but in the world. And I mean it. Now, I'm healthy. I'm the age I am. I've lived this wonderful life. I'm living a great life. I'm doing all kinds of incredible things that I think are incredible. I ride horses. I breed dogs. I breed horses. I'm married. I got children. It's just an extraordinary life. And I know how lucky and how incredible it is. If I were to say, yeah, but I should have played The Godfather. What kind of a yokel would I be? How insensitive to the glory that has been my life. So I'm so happy to be here.
So, just these questions are going to be of very different tones. So, this is from Anna from Corpus Christi, and she says, how comfortable or uncomfortable was your Starfleet uniform?
It depends whether I was before lunch or after lunch.
Now, and I should specify that Boldly Go has chapters about you swimming with sharks, flying a plane, going to space, all kinds of things. So this question is asked in that light. It's from Andrew Fortner of Leander, Texas, and he says, you have lived an amazing life with an eclectic variety of accomplishments. Is there anything left on the Shatner bucket list?
Well, before I kicked that bucket. Of course. Meeting you I'm really serious. You're a student of film. I love film. I watch a lot of film. I love documentaries, by the way. But, if you were to ask me about my favorite film, I wouldn't be able to tell you because there's so many great films. So, you want a musical, you want any kind of the films that are made today, starting 100 years ago, little black and white images to the enormity of taking you away from reality that we had. So there is everything to do. The small things that I've done is nothing compared to what is out there, the infinite things to do, people to help, things to discover, people to talk to. I may have been, I did an interview show, I did three interview shows over the years. The last one was called I Don't Understand, and that was about everything I don't understand, which is everything. I know nothing. I know nothing, and I discovered nobody knows anything. Nobody knows anything. I mean, you're going to school here, you're going to learn 2 plus 2 is 4. Not necessarily. Those of us who have studied quantum physics. But everything is out there for the taking, for the life. No matter if you're $1,800 behind or in front, or you have a fortune or you don't, life is there for the taking. Life is filled with sensual, intellectual delights that are there. No matter what's happening to you, you just have to avail yourself of it. Does that answer your question?
Now this is a question that has a premise that I doubt a little bit, because the question is from Jason Sanchez here in Austin, and he says, what do you do in your spare time? And I don't believe you have any spare time.
Unless I make the spare time to read books, and I read books on my phone. I get the electronic books, and I just finished Trafalgar. It's about the Battle of Trafalgar and Nelson, and the whole idea of Napoleon invading England and how they avoided it, and the fortunes, the vagaries of fortunes that visited the French Navy, the Spanish Navy, and the English Navy. It was a remarkable book. So just grasping that history of Nelson, great hero of England, dropping dead from a sharpshooter early in the battle, and all the things that the other guys did, from whom Nelson has reaped his reputation as being a great general, which he was. But I make time to read, and that's my spare time. I'm reading. I read a book that not only changed my life, but I think I've sold a television show. I read I Talk to the Trees, I think is the title of it. I Talk to the Trees. Does anybody know that book, I Talk to the Trees? Well, it turns out, we're all connected. We all know stardust, we're all stardust, and we came from stardust, and we evolved, and we'll go back to stardust. But what we don't know, really, intrinsically, is how connected we all are. All the human beings are connected, but we're also connected to all of nature. Every aspect of nature, we're connected. And those examples of connection will be arrayed like trees. So trees grow, and there's some magnificent trees in Texas that we've passed under and wondered what they were. Great shade trees growing deep into the earth. So we've noted quite a while that trees give off a pheromone when attacked by bugs, beetles. And so this pheromone wafts downwind, and the similar trees grasp it. Somehow they, that's got to be George that smells like that. We got to make the sap toxic so the beetles won't bite us. And that's how they communicate. That's not all. They've recently discovered. So we know function. And 6 inches below the earth is a whole other world of fungi. The fungi have, as their growth needed, lines of, oh dear, mycelium. Thank you, darling. Mycelium, okay?
Austin.
So there's mycelium, which the fungi does, and mushrooms are the fruit of the mycelium. So they discovered that the trees are giving off electrochemical, low power electrochemical signals using the mycelium to transmit messages to the children of the mother trees. Have you, no, here's the connection. Our brains have dendrites, and we're giving off electrochemical signals that travel along the dendrites. That's how connected to trees we are. I mean, it's magical, magical. Elephants in Africa, walking around, they come upon termite castles. They're about 6 feet tall. Termites chew some earth, masticate the earth, build their termite mounds, and they're air conditioned because they're all moving their wings. And yeah, so they're about 6 feet tall, made of mud, and they stand there. Elephants come along. They got an itchy behind. And they destroy the termite mound, which now lies there, a particular kind of mud. And so there's a little hole in the ground where the elephant's been standing. Rains come, fills the little hole in the ground. So the little hole in the ground gets a little bigger, the elephants wallow in it, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Birds fly over, and they carry some fish eggs, so now fish are in there. Then the alligators come to get the fish. Then other animals come to drink. And now it's a watering hole, and it's a functioning, life-giving thing from an elephant who had an itchy bum. I mean, the connections are innumerable. They are so romantic and beautiful, this connection. And that's what, this is the answer to your question.
Yeah. That answered someone's question.
You remember the question?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope, absolutely not.
But I'm so bowled over by what we are. Yeah, we're all connected. No, we're all connected to everything.
Wow, that's heavy, man. I assumed we were going to be talking about termite mounds at some point tonight when we were talking to Bill Shatner here. This is the question that came up most from the audience. This will be the last one I asked from the audience questions. But now that you've been to space, have your feelings about the show, the movies, the mission of the Enterprise changed? And that's for glory, by the way.
Well, you know, I had, I don't really call it life-changing because I read Rachel Carson's book, The Silent Spring, 60 years ago, and was a ecologist, if you will, way back then, and was spouting out some of this. She wrote about DDT, but the amplified to things that we humans are doing to the Earth inadvertently in most cases, and just by progeny and a population growing and needing more food, and needing more goods and services and things like that. I've always been aware of that. And then I met a guy whose name is Michael Tobias, and he became a buddy. And do you know his name, Michael Tobias? No. They don't teach that here. So he's a well-known ecologist, writes a book, and he just...
You're one to talk.
What?
You're one to talk.
Yeah. So Michael is also a film producer, and he conceived a series called Voice of the Planet, 13 hours, where he and he was directing and I was in front of the camera, went to various hotspots in the world, including the Himalayas, and I got to tell you this story. So we're in the Himalayas, at the foothills of Mount Everest, and over here on this mountainside there is a monastery, about 1,000 monks, Tibetan monks, Nepalese monks, and they were in there chanting and praying, and 1,000 rooms in there. Took a tour, and there were rooms like the size of a closet, and there was an individual, a monk, kneeling and praying, and the walls were all blackened from the smoke from the candle, the single candle of light. And there it was eerie but beautiful. And so all this blackened rooms, the whole place was lit by candlelight, and they were attempting to be in conjunction with the universe. And, you know, in some kind of dim-witted way, I was searching for enlightenment as well. And so instead of going into a tent where everybody was, I took my sleeping bag, and I slept in the bag outside at about 14,000 feet. There's no life, no birds, no insects, just the whistling, the wind coming down from the valleys of these holy mountains, of which this is the center, the spiritual center of why this monastery is there. And I'm waiting for enlightenment. And 7 months, you know, I wake up, what's happened to it? Nothing. On the 7th night, morning, and nothing has happened. Oh, gee. And I pack up, and I roll my bag up. And as I'm rolling my bag up, a couple of grains of sand come into my palm. And I'm looking with intensity at the grains of sand. And I'm realizing that this sand has come from rocks that are eons. Tectonic plates lifted up from ancient rock, and the rains have come over millions of years, have made the sand. And I've got a few grains of this ancient sand in my hand, and I don't need to be in the confluence of all these holy places. I could be in Austin. Well, maybe not Austin. But the grains of sand were the ways of entering into a holier, if you will, world of poetry. And that was an enlightenment. And so when I was asked to go up into space, I had first turned it down. And I said, I gotta go to West Texas. To Van Horn? Do that again. Yeah, Van Horn. It's too much trouble. Yeah. And then, because I was gonna go on the first voyage, and then COVID hit, and then they announced a year later, Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos and a astronaut, a lady astronaut who didn't go up into space, and Jeff Bezos' brother, and a kid. And I know that Jeff Bezos, I know his brother. Well, just casually, but I didn't know the astronaut, didn't know the kid. I don't know this. But they went first. Right? And in the spaceship, there are cameras everywhere. So there's a camera like where you guys are. So there's a camera like in the swing, we're over there, I'm over there. And Bezos hits weightlessness. And I watch him get out of the seat, and he floats, and now he's floating. You're the camera, he's floating, and he's floating with his legs up in the air. So he's like floating. And the kid is throwing candy at his asshole. So I thought, if I get weightless, I'm not going to have candies thrown at my asshole. It's bad enough to know as Bill Shatner. So I'm asked to go up on the second journey, and I say no, but then I say, I'll go for the thrill. So I go for the thrill. And they were asking everybody to come on a Tuesday. They asked me to come in on a Monday. And I thought, why are they asking me to come on a Monday? What am I going to do? So I go, I'm in there on Monday morning. I'm there, and we're sitting around, a nice breakfast, half a dozen people. And I don't want to ask the unspoken question, why am I here? It sounds ungrateful. But I say, why am I here? No, I don't say. So somebody says, oh, let's go to the gantry. It's about 20 miles out. So we jump into a Rivian truck, electric truck. Yeah, it goes 300 miles, and if you're a truck driver, 300 miles is what you do before breakfast. You know, then you got to plug it in and wait while the horses that you're hauling die. So it's a nice, gentleman farmer truck. So we drive to the gantry. They haven't put up the rocket yet, and they said, let's go up the gantry. Oh, okay. Now, Van Horn is about 4,000 feet high, about like Denver, which is 5,000 feet. So if you've ever landed in Denver, get off the airplane. You're a mile in the air. Okay? You're sucking air a little bit. But you lift your baggage up ordinarily. Okay? So they said, let's go up the gantry. So I walk up 3 flights of the gantry. I'm looking, oh God, it's 11 flights up there. And I'm sucking in air. And we go up another 3 flights and say, oh, wait a minute, let's look at the desert. Look at that nice desert. And I finally get to 11 flights up there. And I'm holding on to a rail. And I'm looking, it's like straight ahead, and there's a room about the size of the stage, and with foot-thick cement walls. And I thought, what's that? Oh, that's just a safe room. I said, what do you need a safe room for? Well, it's got air in it, tubes of air and communication to the ground. Well, what do you need all that for? And the guy says, the astronaut says, in case something goes wrong. In case something goes wrong. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? What are you talking about? Could something go wrong? No. And I realized why they brought me there on a Monday. To check me out. To see if I could get up the 11 flights. So, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I think, we rehearsed getting in and out of this chair, which has a 5-point harness, okay? So I drive fast cars. I know about 5-point harnesses. I know about 5-point harnesses. Yeah. But if you try to put a 5-point harness together like this works, but getting the crutch, which is the most important strap. You try to get the point of the crutch strap into the hole of the thing, you're looking for the hole. You can't find the hole. Captain Kirk can't find the hole. So we now get into the spaceship. Okay, up the gantry, we all take our seats, and it's prostrate. And we go. You can snap it up together. I'm all snapped in, and the guy on the loudspeaker says, "All right, we can start the countdown, but we're going to remove the gantry." And this is the God's truth. He says, "And anybody who wants to leave can leave now." And I'm thinking, I'm out of here. And then I'm thinking, I can't. So I stay. And I'm looking down and I see them putting something, which I know to be hydrogen, into the rocket. And I'm thinking they're feeding hydrogen into the rocket. Have you guys seen the Hindenburg documentary where the guy goes, it's all the humanity of it all. He's high-pitched, the humanity of it all. And people, little specks of people are running, and the thing is blazing. You know it's blazing, right? Hydrogen is blazing. They're putting hydrogen in the... So I pucker up a little bit there. Then the countdown continues. The countdown T-minus 17. Hold it. There's an anomaly. I look at my phone. What the meaning of anomaly is? Anomaly. Something wrong. Something's gone wrong. What the hell has gone wrong? And where's the safe room? And the gantry is gone. I could have left. Well, it's okay. And they continue the countdown. And now there's liftoff. And 3 or 4 G's sit on my chest. And I think I'm going to die. And then, boom, we threw the carbon line. And weightless. And I get out of the 5-point harness. And I remember Jeff Bezos. And everybody else is like shaking hands and doing it. I get to the window. And for some reason, I look back at the window. And I noticed something I've never heard discussed. And that is, the spaceship is going, I don't know, 1,500 miles an hour or 2,000 or something. And there's a wake of the air. The blue air is disturbed, like a submarine. I've never heard that before. There was a wake from the spaceship. So I was like fascinated for a second until I turned to look where we were going. And I saw the blackness of space. Now, because I was in Star Trek, and even long before that, many times after that, I have studied, I've read, I've met great scientists who study, study the heavens. I've been fascinated by the galaxies, the Webb, by the Hubble, by 13.8 billion light years of the photon, which is both a particle and a wave hitting my retina, and I'm fascinated by space and the magic of space. There's no magic. I'm looking at death. I am looking at death there, and I'm looking at life back there, the beauty, because we were so far removed from the Texas desert, the beauty. The beauty of the Texas desert, that beige and green, and the white of the clouds, and the blue of the sky. And I'm looking at death, and I'm looking at life. Death, life, death, life. And I'm like, fall backwards, and finally I get back into the seat, and we land. Oh, I see the curvature of the earth, and I think, my God, I could go like that. Now, I've driven many times across the country. Innumerable times across Texas. I've taken 10, I've taken 40, I've taken 80, I've driven alone. I hitchhiked when I was going to university. Before I got into university, I hitchhiked all the way through here. I went from Montreal to San Diego to Vancouver and back to Montreal, all on my own. I've driven a motorcycle from Chicago through Texas to Los Angeles. I've driven with children, I've driven with dogs, I've driven alone, I've driven a truck, I've driven, it means everywhere you go, especially in Texas, the road roads go into infinity. It's forever. You drive and drive and drive and drive, and it's still infinity now. Right? It's not, my dears. It's so small. You can go like that. That's the rock. We're living on a rock. We're living in the Cinderella area of it's not too hot, it's not too cold. Everywhere else it's too cold or it's too hot. We're living on a rock with an onion skin air around it. I'm a pilot. 12,500 feet, you have to have oxygen. So that's 2 miles. 2 miles up, the air is no longer sustaining life. You die. 2 miles of air. A circumference that you can make with your circle for 50 miles. We're living on a rock that is insignificant. And then we, little tiny microbes on this rock, crawl around and think we have significance. We're not. We human beings are insignificant on an insignificant rock, on a mediocre star, in a non-entity of a galaxy. We're nothing. We're nothing. Except. And when I landed, I was weeping. Why am I crying? What am I doing? I sit down someplace to gather myself. Why am I uncontrollably crying? And I realized that I'm in grief. I'm mourning the world. Because I know a lot, not everything, a small part of what I know, of the extinctions that are going on right now. I know that there have been, I recently drove from Los Angeles to San Francisco and back in the day. I covered about 700 miles in a car. I've done it many times, and years ago when I would do it, you'd have to stop every 100 miles and scrape the insects off the windshield. I had one splatter. The insects had disappeared. I'm sure you've noticed it here. People who have been here, say 10 years, there is a noticeable decrease in insects and birds. But then there's all the things we've never seen. Things that took 5 billion years to evolve have gone extinct, and we don't know what they were. We don't know the sacredness of what evolution brought us. There are millions of things that have disappeared, and we've never filed them, we don't know them, we don't know that they lived, they don't know that they died, and they were all miraculous because they filled the imperative of life. Life is imperative. Life fills every niche, and when it dies, something else takes its place until it lives. You see trees that are thousands of years old, lodged into a cliff, and it clings it and says, I'm alive, and I'm going to stay here. And because of our activity, we're killing things. Now, I thought of all these things and was in grief going into space. When I performed at Kennedy Center, the song So Fragile, So Blue we wrote about all the things, as many things as we can think of, that we miss, that are life's delight, and can, if we don't do something quickly about it, will disappear. And so that music video, which will come out soon, is my idea of a rallying cry, because intertwined in all the lyrics is the phrase, what can we do? In fact, the song ends as I repeat, what can we do? What can we do? And the music comes to a crescendo. And that was the end. And the people rose and applauded. And it was a journey that I had done. And it made me feel that I have a purpose in the last part of my life to bring you this message of destruction and a message of hope that if we start right now, we can avoid the worst. Thank you very much.